The story kicks off at a school, with students racing around a track as a group of girls cheers from the sidelines. Running with all his might, Xu Jing clocks in at 2 minutes and 36 seconds. Instantly, every girl in the cheer squad is smitten, erupting in cheers for their upperclassmen. Splashing some water on himself, the protagonist leaves the girls even more captivated by his good looks. A fellow student then approaches with a towel for his sweat, and he graciously thanks her. Overjoyed that he accepted her gift, the girl dashes off, completely flustered. A moment later, a system notification pops up for our protagonist, confirming he's gained running experience. He notices his experience jumped by 20 points, a bit more than the usual amount. All of a sudden, another notification flashes before him, stating his charm has increased by 45. Glancing at the adoring crowd, he mutters about how this useless skill levels up far too quickly. Out of nowhere, a green energy begins to pool in Xu Jing's hand, piquing his curiosity. This energy quickly materializes into a small, glowing sphere resting in his palm. His gaze shifts to a group of bullies across the field, leaving him to wonder what's going on. One of the bullies glares at him with a menacing look, clearly trying to start something. Right then, his friend sprints over, asking about the situation and if he knows the tough guy. With a look of pure panic, his friend points, finally recognizing the person standing there. That's the school's top tyrant, Pei Guang, his friend explains, wondering why he'd ever cross a guy like that. His friend asks if it was over a girl again, telling him he really needs to stop accepting their gifts. Xu Jing, however, dismisses the warning, tossing the towel back to his friend without a care. His friend insists that Pei Guang isn't someone to mess with, but the protagonist just says he's heading off to work out. Xu Jing then adds that while working out might be pointless for others, he flashes a smile, affirming that he's a different case. He confidently clenches his fist, asserting that for him, things just work differently. Our protagonist recalls how 1 month ago, he inexplicably arrived in a world almost identical to Earth. He came equipped with a panel that rewards his effort and hard work with status points. For him, hard work is never in vain and always yields some kind of reward. As long as he practices enough, he can even unlock brand new abilities. While the daily training is beneficial, the energy toll on his body is also immense. This is painfully obvious when he opens his fridge to find it completely empty. But he isn't pushing himself this hard just for show, he has a much larger goal in mind. Stepping out onto the street, the protagonist explains that this area is the 5th metropolitan circle. The city is divided into an inner and outer side. The deeper you go, the more prosperous it becomes. With just half a year until graduation, he faces a critical choice about his future. At the store, the cashier tells him his total is 210, leaving him stunned at the cost. Faced with a high price, he begins returning some items to his cart so he can afford the rest. Walking home, he grumbles that 5 eggs cost 30 and that this world's economy is insane. Suddenly, a strange presence alerts him, and he immediately puts his guard up. A black cat appears out of nowhere, meowing right in front of him and taking him by surprise. The feline then collapses dramatically, making him wonder if he's being scammed by a cat. The little animal lies motionless on the ground, leaving our hero utterly baffled. Crouching down for a closer look, he sees the small creature is covered in injuries. On the ground, the cat begins to speak, lamenting that it never expected the stray cat world to be so harsh. Hearing this, the protagonist is completely floored, questioning if a cat actually just talked. Looking closer, he spots a peculiar golden ring on the feline's tail, sparking his curiosity. He gently takes the critter's tail, examining the mysterious object and wondering what it could be. All at once, the ring starts to glow as a notification announces the detection of a divine substance. The divinity is then absorbed, as an explanation reveals this planet is called Earthstar. Here, 287 years ago, a being known as God vanished. On that fateful day, every human on Earthstar witnessed the grand spectacle with their own eyes. All eyes were on the sky, captivated by the meteor shower raining down upon them. From that moment forward, the gods were gone and humanity forged its own path. This divine light scattered across the globe, forever altering the lives of all people. Our protagonist declares with a confident smirk that he will one day strive to become a god himself. A short while later, back in his apartment, we see he decided to bring the injured kitten home. The young man offers a bowl of kibble to the feline, hoping it will eat. To his surprise, the animal turns its nose up with a look of utter disdain, refusing the food. Annoyed, the young man asks, "You're a stray, shouldn't you eat anything you can get?" The cat once again reflects on how cruel the world of stray cats can truly be. Witnessing this behavior, our hero starts to suspect this is no ordinary cat. With an idea forming, he strides purposefully toward the kitchen to grab something. He returns with a massive kitchen knife, making his less than friendly intentions clear. But instead of harming the critter, he starts cooking, even gaining culinary experience points. Our protagonist continues to cook like a master, his skill level rising with each motion. He then presents a bowl of pork over rice and asks the cat if it will eat now. At the sight of the meal, the feline's eyes sparkle and its mouth waters. It clearly loves the dish. Xu Jing realizes his hunch was correct, deducing the cat is a transformed human. He's certain the transformation is linked to the golden ring that was on the animal's tail. Abruptly, his system announces the divinity absorption is complete, unlocking a new skill. The screen prompts him, activate ability, and for our hero the answer is obvious. With a determined gaze, he makes his choice without hesitation, selecting highs A brilliant light flashes as the system confirms the dual life ability has been successfully activated. Shortly after, a small golden flame flickers to life in his palm, fascinating him. The system explains he now has 2 lives, allowing him to return 7 days after being defeated. The protagonist is in absolute shock as he reads that he now possesses a total of 2 lives. He can barely process it, just 7-day return time with only a 3-month cooldown. It's like having a resurrection armor, he thinks to himself before wondering about the active skill. However, the system informs him the active skill is currently locked and also requires divinity to unlock. He shoots a mischievous grin at the cat, contemplating siphoning more of its energy. But as he looks closer, he notices the little animal's body is riddled with scars. Seeing this, he decides it would be cruel to drain any more energy from such a wounded creature. The young man resolves to find another way, gently stroking the cat, now content with a full belly. The cat lets out a cute meow, but the protagonist knows he can't just let the matter rest. He decides to head out in search of clues about divinity, leaving the cat to its own devices. With that, he leaves the apartment, leaving the small feline alone in the darkness. The moment the door clicks shut, the animal's expression shifts to a menacing glare. The kitty stands silently in the dark room, its bright green eyes scanning its surroundings. The scene shifts to the impoverished streets of the outer ring, highlighting the city's disparity. For those in the outer ring, it's explained, the difficulty of even entering the inner ring is absurd. Even if they manage to get in, the entry fee is so steep it could easily bankrupt a small family. What most people don't realize, however, is that there's another way to achieve this. Xu Jing knows that by becoming a martial artist, all of these problems would simply disappear. Suddenly, a bald man armed with a club calls out to him from behind, obviously looking for trouble. Turning around with a cold stare, the protagonist asks, "You need something?" The bully smirks, "You're my boss Pei Yuguang's target. You're finished today." Unfazed, our hero calmly asks which brother the goon is referring to. In a flash, he lunges forward, taking down several goons with blinding speed. The remaining thugs are stunned, barely able to process what just happened. Wasting no time, he pivots and delivers a powerful punch straight to a nearby bully's face. The blow sends the man flying backward, his face bright red as he drools from the impact. After the swift attack, the young man opens his hand, letting a few small objects drop to the ground. With a sharp glint in his eye, he activates his aiming ability, preparing his next move. The lead goon, now on the ground, admits the kid has a few tricks but remains unimpressed. That's not nearly enough, the bully declares, powering up an attack with a blue dragon aura. With his targeting skill active, the protagonist braces himself to evade the incoming strike. His opponent's fist smashes into the ground, creating a crater, but the young man dodges it effortlessly. Witnessing the attack's power, our hero is taken aback, wondering if that was a martial arts technique. The brute turns, complimenting the kid's agility for dodging such a powerful blow. Xu Jing is pleased, knowing Pei Yuguang uses martial arts saves him the trouble of searching. He approaches one of the downed men and demands he tell him everything he knows. With a threatening glare, the young man warns, "If you don't cooperate, I won't show any mercy." A moment later, the goon is sent flying into a nearby wall, collapsing in a heap. The protagonist slowly closes in on the fallen man, further ramping up the intimidation. Terrified, the bully quickly surrenders, promising to tell him whatever he wants to know. Our hero cracks a slight smile, thinking the guy wasn't as tough as he initially acted. However, another goon who was lying in wait reveals he only had that one move and attacks with all his might. The man charges forward with a look of fierce determination, ready to finish the protagonist. His system activates a combat skill as he thinks. Handling a martial artist of this level is simple. The goon, now terrified, begs Brother Jing not to hit him again and to spare his life. With a smile, our hero inquires about the punch the enemy used in his previous attack. The man explains it was inner force, a technique that gathers energy from within the body. When the protagonist asks how to train it, the guy claims to only know the basics and pleads for mercy. Clenching his fist, the protagonist asks sternly, "Are you playing dumb with me? I've heard rumors about you," he adds, causing the bully to cry and deny everything to avoid another beating. The young man warns that if he doesn't learn his lesson, he'll get a thrashing every time they cross paths. He orders the man to write a letter of apology and recite it 10 times in front of the entire class tomorrow. The goon hastily agrees, and Xu Jing has a lackey start recording to ensure his orders are followed. Seeing the phone, the man panics, pleading with our hero not to hit him anymore. Since the goon couldn't explain the technique well, the protagonist demands the dojo's address instead. The scene shifts, showing the towering, illuminated skyscrapers of the city's inner ring. He makes his way through the area, following the directions he was given to find his destination. His system displays the experience gained from the fight, showing how his skills have leveled up. He reflects that fighting yields far greater rewards than his usual training exercises. Based on this, he decides to seek out more fights, finally arriving at the Golden Wind Dojo. The young man enters, announcing he's there for a visit, but the receptionist shushes him, explaining the master is teaching. Peeking into the room, he's curious to see what a real martial arts class looks like. Inside, the master explains that the breathing method is the key to unlocking the body's inner force. Realizing this is exactly what he was looking for, the young man is thrilled by the opportunity. He asks the receptionist if he can join in, and she, blushing at his good looks, says yes. As he walks to find a spot, he gains 30 charm points and thanks the woman for her help. The receptionist worries that, being new to martial arts, he might not succeed. The master continues his instructions as the woman frets about being let go if no students pass. Several students attempt to hold their breath, but one by one, they give up, coughing. The receptionist's face falls as she sees even their most promising student, Kwai Junjuan, has failed. She approaches the master, pleading for a few more days to find a suitable talent. The woman continues to insist desperately, but the master seems to ignore her, walking past. He sharply tells her be quiet and points towards our hero, who is still holding strong. The protagonist mentally counts down the final seconds, feeling the immense oxygen in his lungs. He feels a true Qi expanding within his body, a pressure that feels like it's about to burst. As time runs out, he exhales and his system alerts him, inner force ability activated. The master approaches the student and asks how he's feeling after the exercise. Surrounded by a faint blue aura, the young man replies that he feels incredibly invigorated. The master and the receptionist are ecstatic, immediately trying to convince him to join their dojo. Without warning, a bizarre creature smashes through the dojo door, storming into the room. The monster lunges forward, attacking a student and sending him flying from the impact. The massive insect-like creature lets out a screech, standing over the fallen student's body. Everyone in the room is frozen with shock and terror at the creature's sudden appearance. "Everyone, get out now," the master commands, telling Manager Zhang to coordinate the evacuation. The monster then turns its head, its glowing red eyes locking onto the remaining students. In a blur of motion, the creature lunges toward the receptionist, ready to strike. At the very last second, Zhu Jing yanks her out of the way, saving her from the attack. The two tumble to the floor as the monster hurtles past them, its attack missing completely. The receptionist, flustered, thanks him while secretly wishing she could stay in his arms forever. For doing nothing at all, his system awards him another 20 charm points. He recalls the master's explanation of inner force and eyes the monster with a plan forming. A smirk crosses his face as he decides this is the perfect chance to test his newfound power. Enveloped in a red aura of pure rage, the creature barrels towards him. But our protagonist stands his ground, landing a powerful punch right in the strange beast's center. The force of the blow creates a shockwave, violently blasting the monster backward. He wonders if the creature is as resilient as a cockroach, which can withstand 300 times its own weight. If so, he reasons, "I need to focus all my strength into a single point to end this." With that thought, his body's golden energy begins to converge into his fist for the attack. The young man activates his 1-inch punch ability, striking the monster with a devastating blow. The punch is so powerful it sends the creature hurtling across the room, spinning wildly through the air. Upon impact, the creature explodes into pieces, splattering green liquid everywhere. Brushing off his shoulder, the protagonist remarks that the beast was much weaker than it appeared. While the receptionist looks on adoringly, the master worries his body can't handle that much power. Suddenly, the wooden floorboards beneath the young man's feet begin to splinter and crack from the pressure. The creature regenerates, its menacing gaze asking if he still wants to continue the fight. Unfazed, the young man retorts, "The outcome will be the same no matter how many times you try." His Qi meridians begin to gather, preparing for an attack even more potent than the last. And with a single final blow, he eradicates the monster once and for all. He stands there confused, unsure what just happened or why his strike was so destructive. Before he can process it, another monster appears, rushing toward him to attack. He instantly realizes he overexerted himself on the last hit and is now too drained to fight back. But just before the creature reaches him, a beam of blue light effortlessly slices it in half. The beast explodes into fragments, leaving our hero standing there completely bewildered. Looking up, he wonders what's going on and who just saved him from the attack. A white-haired woman appears, introducing herself as the captain of the White Raven squad. "Voidblade is securing this area," she announces. "All civilians must evacuate immediately." He wonders if everyone in her organization is powerful enough to dispatch a monster so easily. The captain eyes the young man, thinking he can't be older than 18 to be this strong. A sly look crosses her face as she thinks, "I need to find a way to recruit him." She strides over and stops directly in front of him, her proximity making him a bit uncomfortable. She then hands him a small paper card containing some important information. The woman tells him to be at the address on the note this Sunday at 5 p.m. to get the answers he seeks. Though a bit suspicious, the protagonist accepts the card, tucking it away for later. The note directs him to the 7th floor of the Qingqing Library for their meeting. The receptionist and the other woman rush over, worriedly asking if he's truly alright. They begin to pull him towards the hospital, but the young man insists that he's fine. The receptionist asks him to return tomorrow, though the master doubts he'll ever come back. Deeply impressed by the boy's strength, he watches him disappear into the city streets. On his way home, a system notification details all the experience he gained from the battle. He muses that with the 1-inch punch, even the most formidable defense can be shattered. Smiling, he tries to replicate the feeling of gathering QI in his fist. But as he attempts it, he grimaces, finding it incredibly difficult to accomplish. The master's warning echoes in his thoughts, and the young man decides to rest and try again tomorrow. Walking down the street, he contemplates the secrets of this world and resolves to check out the address over the weekend. The scene shifts to his apartment window, revealing it's now late into the night. He checks his phone and sees a photo of the cat tinkering with his computer while he was away. Turning to the feline, he demands, "What were you doing on my computer?" The cat simply responds with an innocent meow, but the young man isn't falling for its act. "We'll settle this after I get some sleep," he says, leaving the kitty confused. Without another word, he collapses on his bed from sheer exhaustion, leaving the animal bewildered. The feline then detects a strange scent in the air, realizing it's the smell of blood coming from him. An electric aura crackles around the critter as it wonders if the young man got into a fight. The cat becomes enraged, declaring, "He's my person. No one dares to bully him." With that, the kitty leaps onto the young man to wake him, demanding to know what happened. "I will get justice for you," the animal exclaims, and the protagonist finally realizes it can definitely talk. With heavy eyelids, he thinks to himself, "I already knew you were a human." As he turns over to sleep, the feline desperately pleads, "Don't pass out on me now." The scene transitions to the following morning, with sunlight streaming into the apartment. He awakens the next day feeling fully recovered and sits down to a large, delicious meal. While eating, the cat asks, "So you defeated a monster instead of getting beat up by someone?" Our protagonist calmly confirms the story as he continues to enjoy his breakfast. The feline grows thoughtful, recalling it hadn't heard any recent reports of monsters in the city. A warm smile appears on the young man's face as he begins to gently scratch the little animal's ear. "Thanks for worrying about me, Nair," he says, making the kitty visibly happy. The little animal gets completely flustered, wondering why the young man chose that name. The critter huffs, "You should address me respectfully as Lord Sec Leader." Holding up his phone, the protagonist asks, "So what was Lord Nair doing on my computer?" The kitten is thrown into a complete panic, unsure of how to answer. It nervously explains that the object is a cat tail ring, an incredibly rare type of divine relic. Our hero then takes the critter's tail to inspect the ring more closely, startling it. It is explained that when God vanished 287 years ago, these divine relics emerged. It all clicks into place. He finally understands how the mysterious ring can absorb divinity. The feline complains, "How long are you going to keep squeezing my tail like that?" The young man clears his throat. "So, were you looking up the user manual for this thing?" The animal denies it, claiming it was actually trying to find a way to remove the object. Seeing the cat is finally ready to share its story, the protagonist listens intently. The feline explains that the dragon sect, the largest gang in Qingqing, controls numerous businesses. It was ambushed in its own home, where someone forced the ring onto it, triggering the transformation into a cat. A flashback shows the sect's leader being defeated, collapsing after a surprise attack. "By the time I escaped," it says, "my sect had already been seized by my rivals." With a look of pure fury, the feline vows to get revenge and eliminate all of its enemies. The protagonist asks about its next move, noting the library is an unlikely source of help. The kitty crosses its arms confidently, announcing that it already has a plan. The plan, it says, is for the young man to practice martial arts and become immensely powerful. It explains that once he becomes strong, various organizations will seek him out, bringing clues about the relics. Our hero manages a weak smile, thinking to himself that a few of those organizations have already come knocking. The feline then declares it will introduce him to the absolute best dojo for honing his skills. With a mysterious air, the animal asks, "Hey, have you ever heard of the Hidden Dragon Dojo?" The protagonist seems a bit surprised by the question, replying that of course he's heard of it. He explains that when he first wanted to practice martial arts, he researched the prices of every dojo in the city. He distinctly remembers the Hidden Dragon Dojo being the most expensive, with a ton of terrible online reviews. The kitty scoffs, retorting that those reviews are from weaklings who couldn't handle the intense training. When the young man asks how to join, the animal says the method is to simply storm the dojo and defeat everyone inside. Calling him unsophisticated, the feline clarifies that the evasion is merely their form of a job interview. It illustrates a pyramid of ranks, with paying students at the bottom and successful invaders at the top. An invincible spirit is the most crucial part of the martial arts journey, it lectures. Storming the dojo is the ultimate test, the best way to prove a true fighter's spirit and strength. The cat instructs him to go to the dojo tomorrow, mentioning it has some important matters to attend to. The following day, our protagonist prepares to follow the feline's rather unorthodox advice. Upon his arrival, an instructor welcomes our hero to the Hidden Dragon Dojo. As the young man shakes the instructor's hand to introduce himself, he's cut off mid-sentence. He realizes the man is gripping his hand with immense force and wonders if this is some kind of test. Figuring it's a test, he decides to get serious, gathering his true QI into his hand. In response, the instructor howls in pain, begging the young man to release his hand immediately. The other students start laughing, and the embarrassed instructor snaps at them for being loudmouths. Suddenly, an announcement is made that the dojo's old master and his disciples are approaching. An elderly man in a wheelchair appears with 4 disciples, their presence surprising everyone. But the protagonist is truly shocked to see the cat, Warner, sitting comfortably on the master's lap. The old man commands silence, and the tension in the room instantly thickens. He addresses our hero directly, asking, "Who are you, the one who has come to challenge my dojo?" The cat on the master's lap gives the young man a subtle wink, leaving him utterly confused. Xu sizes up the group and says with confidence, "Not a bad welcome at all. It's been a long time since anyone dared to storm this dojo," the master says. "Do you believe you are qualified?" The young man quickly checks his stats, sees his low combat levels, and isn't sure how to respond. The old man then states he will ask a few questions, and our hero agrees to answer. He asks for his name, age, and even inquires about his family and line of work. The protagonist grows tense, wondering if this is a job interview or a marriage proposal. The master chuckles. For a potential son-in-law, I must ask a few more questions. What is happening? The protagonist mouths, to which the cat silently replies that it has no idea. One of the disciples speaks up. To find out if you're qualified, we must first fight. A spark of interest lights up in our hero's eyes at the proposed challenge. The girl settles into a fighting stance and says, "Don't worry, little brother, I'll go easy on you." Completely undaunted, the young man accepts the challenge, preparing for the impending fight. With that, the junior-senior sister rushes forward to attack, surprising the other students. The instructor, whose hand was crushed earlier, scoffs. "That kid is about to get wrecked." The cat grumbles under its breath. "If this is a marriage interview, why is there fighting?" The disciple charges forward, shouting a warning to her, little brother, to watch out. Alarmed by her speed, the feline panics and cries out Xu Jing's name in worry. A blue targeting reticle appears in the girl's eyes, hinting at some kind of combat system. She throws a flurry of punches, but the protagonist effortlessly dodges every single one. Seizing an opening, he manages to grab the woman's arm in the middle of her assault. In one fluid motion, he flips her over his shoulder, slamming her hard onto the floor. The girl is left with her eyes spinning, completely knocked out by the young man's single move. The other disciples are stunned, remarking on his precise vision and footwork. The master laughs, congratulating the cat on finding such a promising seedling, and the feline proudly takes the credit. As his system displays the experience gained, Xu Jing asks if his challenge was successful. The old man confirms that by defeating Zhu Shaning, he is already qualified as a direct disciple. With a warm smile, the master then asks, "Isn't it time you started calling me master?" The protagonist is slightly confused by the master's phrasing, not quite getting the joke. He bows respectfully, greeting his new master and the dojo's senior brothers and sisters. The girl on the floor introduces herself as Zhu Shaning, admitting she underestimated him. Xu Jing thanks her for the lesson, realizing she must have been the newest addition before him. A woman approaches, addressing him as young Master Xu, and offering to handle his paperwork. The master explains that as a new resident of the inner ring, the formal title is fitting. The young man is clearly uncomfortable with the new title, asking if they can use something less formal. The woman suggests Master Jing, and he accepts just to move past the awkward conversation. The scene then transitions to a lounge area, with a close up on the sign on its door. Inside the room, he remarks to the cat that the invasion wasn't as difficult as it was made out to be. But the feline responds with a serious tone, stating that in reality, she is far stronger than him. A stat chart appears, showing the girl's attributes are vastly superior to his in nearly every category. "She underestimated you," the animal explains, "but a win is a win. There's nothing more to it." Our hero realizes he won on a fluke and still has a long way to go in his training. He asks where the cat disappeared to yesterday, and the critter says it had to visit Grandpa Le. The feline reveals this Grandpa was almost its grandmother's lover, a story the young man finds hilarious. The woman returns and hands him a new ID card, an act which earns him another 20 charm points. The next day, a student remarks that he heard the new guy trained all night without a break. We then see the protagonist pushing himself hard, with multiple experience notifications popping up. His inner force advances to level 2, and his charm simultaneously increases by 35 points. "Keep going," the master encourages from the side. "Just a little longer, hold steady." With a look of sheer determination, the young man pushes on, refusing to let his efforts go to waste. A golden light envelopes him as the system congratulates him on reaching a new level. After the grueling session, he finally collapses to the floor, completely drained of energy. The old man praises him, saying that of all the disciples he has ever trained, this young man is the most promising. He states that soon our hero will be ready to cultivate the core method of the Hidden Dragon sect. The young man sits up excitedly, asking what level he needs to reach to learn this new method. The master extends his hand, instructing the protagonist to take it for a quick test. He assumes it's just another training exercise, but the old man seems to have something else in mind. The master's eyes turn red as he concentrates his energy with a fierce expression. A massive amount of Qi flows into the young man's body, taking him completely by surprise. He tries to resist, but the energy is so overwhelming that he's rendered completely powerless. "What sports do you play?" the old man asks. The young man replies, "I just jog a little now and then." The protagonist asks if something is wrong with his body, but the master assures him there's no problem. He explains that his body possesses a terrifyingly perfect balance, as if it were sculpted by a god. The master calls him a martial arts prodigy, though the young man knows it's all thanks to his system panel. Eagerly, he asks if he can learn the method now, and the old man chuckles at his impatience. The master explains that his body is covered in micro-injuries, and attempting to cultivate now would be dangerous. With a serious expression, the protagonist asks what he should do to prepare himself. The old man instructs him to go to the hall, saying he'll send someone with a special ointment. The scene shifts to the glowing side of the Hidden Dragon dojo against the night sky. When a knock comes at the door, the protagonist, unconcerned, tells the person to enter. Zhu Shaning walks in, announcing she's there to treat her little junior brother's injuries. The young man gets nervous, wondering if she's actually here to get even for her loss. The girl then tells him to take off his shirt, a request that leaves him slightly confused. He complies and the woman compliments his physique, noting that he's well built. This interaction immediately earns him another 45 points in charm according to his system. As the protagonist lies down on the bed, his senior sister warns him not to move. She begins to apply the ointment, but her close proximity makes the young man a bit jumpy. "Stop moving," she scolds, making him wonder what this woman is planning. She starts rubbing the ointment on his chest, admitting that she's a very competitive person. With a mischievous grin, the girl leans in even closer to continue her special treatment. He is surprised by the sheer strength in her hands and how firmly she can grip him. His senior sister then asks why he's so quiet, leaving him at a loss for words. Awkwardly, the young man replies, "It's nothing, it's all good as long as you're happy." She then admits she was careless during their match and wanted to get a little payback by teasing him. "You not mad, are you?" she asks, and the question nets him another 45 charm points. His system pings again, confirming the charm increase from his interaction with the girl. "I'm not mad," he says. "It just stung a little, but feel free to continue." Smiling, the woman says she's finished with his upper body and tells him to take off his pants. The protagonist quickly insists he can handle the lower half himself to avoid bothering his senior sister. She bursts out laughing, revealing she was just messing with him and that he looked terrified. Handing him the ointment, the woman says he'll have to manage the rest on his own. She then leaves the room, humming cheerfully, leaving our hero on the bed in a state of confusion. Walking through the city later, he thinks, "That was terrifying. I was almost disassembled by that woman." Out of the blue, a system notification congratulates him on leveling up his skills. Seeing his new level, he decides that since he's free, he might as well check out that meeting at the library. He thinks about the White Raven squad, assuming it's probably just some special police unit. Gazing at the building, he wonders why they would arrange a meeting in such a public place. The scene focuses on the golden plaque at the entrance, which reads, "Kingching Library." Arriving on the 7th floor, he finds it completely empty and wonders if it was a prank, but then someone calls his name. With a serious expression, the young man turns to see who it is. A blonde woman introduces herself, and he immediately asks where Void Blade is and why they chose this location. The captain explains that the blonde woman is her informant, which is why they couldn't meet at the station. The blonde admits she was skeptical at first, but after witnessing him in action, he has her full approval. Taking a seat at the table, she formally extends an invitation for him to join their organization. Propping a foot on the table, he asks, "And on what basis should I accept your invitation?" She just smiles and replies, "Because you're curious about the famous divine relics, aren't you?" Our hero is completely stunned by her question, wondering how on earth she could know. Seeing she hit the nail on the head, she asks how he first learned about divine relics. The protagonist states he has no comment, his mind racing to figure out this woman's background. The blonde woman then grabs a bottle of water to pour him a glass, intrigued by the situation. "It's fine if you don't want to talk," she says. "That's my fault for not providing you with enough information first." With a smile, she pushes a cup toward him, inviting him to have a drink. Completely lost, he decides to play along and takes a sip to see what will happen. To his confusion, he realizes it's just ordinary water with no discernible flavor. The woman then takes the same water and begins to pour it into an ornate, fancy teapot. She then uses the teapot to pour water back into his cup. "Is this still just plain water?" he asks, trying to figure out her angle. Despite his suspicion, our hero decides to taste the drink one more time. To his utter astonishment, he discovers the water now tastes sweet and wonders how it's even possible. The blonde woman explains that 287 years ago, a being known as God vanished. The points of light that scattered from this event, she continues, gave birth to something new. These motes of light came to be known as God's blood, and they rained down all over the world. God's blood then settled into various objects and living things, forever altering the planet. And the items that were infused with this blood, she concludes, are what we call divine relics. The young man asks to see the relic, still half suspecting she just slipped some sugar into his water. The moment he touches the teapot, his system detects divinity and begins absorbing its energy. Thrilled, he asks about the relic's function, guessing, does it boil water out of thin air? The woman chuckles and says he's on the right track, thinking to herself how cute and naive he is. He notices the water level in the teapot isn't dropping and asks if it's infinite, earning praise for his cleverness. His system continues to absorb the relic's power, allowing him to accumulate 502 points of divinity. A grin spreads across the protagonist's face as he realizes he finally has enough to unlock his active ability. The blonde woman then says that, as a top student, he should understand the implications of such an item. The young man gets it, these divine relics are capable of completely defying the laws of their world. He then wonders if the kettle is essentially a perpetual motion machine and how that relates to the city, but the woman advises him not to overthink it, as the very existence of a divine relic represents the irrational. When he asks why she's telling him all this, she reveals it's because he defeated a monster 3 days ago. She compliments him, stating that on a spiritual level, he has already surpassed the vast majority of people. With that, the woman extends her hand, formally inviting him to join her relic containment company. Without a moment's hesitation, he grabs her hand, with a look of desperate sincerity, begs to join the team. "I'll obey every command," he shouts. "This is exactly the kind of job I need." He figures that at the Divine Relic Containment Company, he'll find plenty of items and strike it rich. He knows these relics are the only source of divinity, and since his passive ability is already powerful, the active one must be incredible. With a confident grin, he claims that no one in the world can defeat him, but the woman thinks he hasn't seen anything yet. At that, she pulls a document from her bag, preparing to hand it over to him. She then hands the employment contract to Xu Jing, asking him to sign if everything looks good. Reading through the contract, he sees he cannot leak any information about the relics the company researches. He also spots a clause about the risks, noting his family will receive 5 million in case of a serious accident. The woman explains that the relics are sorted into 4 danger levels, from D up to A. Since he's new, he'll only be assigned level D missions, so there's no danger as long as he follows procedure. She goes on to explain that only by climbing the company ladder will he get involved in truly hazardous work. Xu Jing then asks one final question: why was he chosen for such an important role? A slight smile plays on her lips as she tells him he's wrong about one thing. She reveals it wasn't him who made contact with the divine relic, but the other way around. Confused by her statement, he asks what she means by that. She explains that divine relics seem to possess a certain degree of their own will. Because of this, these items actively seek out people who attract them. She continues, saying that among all of humanity, there's a type of person who draws these relics in, and she's one of them. Pointing at the young man, she says he shares the exact same constitution. Glancing at the contract, he sees a salary of 200,000 plus profit sharing and is floored by the numbers. Xu Jing immediately signs, claiming the salary isn't important because he's just passionate about divine relics. With the contract signed, he asks her to look out for him from now on, calling her Big Sis. She smiles and agrees, looking forward to their partnership. He then says his goodbyes, thinking that between the dojo and the relics, he won't have time for school anymore. With that, he messages a friend asking him to tell everyone he's sick and stuck in bed. Our protagonist now knows his most urgent task is to build his strength for any hope of returning. Later, on an outer ring road, he decides to check out his new active ability. His system panel shows the skill is ready to be unlocked, and he activates it without a second thought. This new ability lets him pick a body-related attribute and give it a double effect. He figures doubling his defense is pointless with resurrection, and his attack doesn't rely on raw strength. So, he chooses movement speed to test just how powerful this skill really is. For his test, he decides to sprint to a lamppost about 100 meters away. All set, the young man takes off, running as fast as he can to clock his time. His time clocks in at 10.24 seconds, a very impressive result. He thinks the result wasn't half bad, but now it's time to test his skill's true power. He wonders if activating the ability for the run back will make him even faster. Xu Jing gets into a starting stance, ready to use double life and test his theory. With a shout, he blasts forward, wrapped in a golden aura of pure speed. He moves like a flash of light, and his new time is a stunning 5.12 seconds. The young man is amazed to see his speed literally doubled with the new ability. The narrator explains that for someone to improve their sprint time from 20 to 12 seconds is fairly simple. Reaching 12 seconds just takes a period of high-intensity training. But after that point, every tiny improvement requires 100 or even 1,000 times the effort. He then realizes that in a close-quarters fight, he couldn't afford a single mistake. With double life activated, no one could possibly predict his logic-defying burst of speed. This would let him land a decisive blow on opponent, securing his victory. He grins. Double life is a god-tier skill that ignores physical laws and limits. While his body is still warm, he decides to try using the ability a few more times. But his excitement turns to frustration when he discovers the skill has a cooldown and can't be used again. Checking the time, he realizes only 20 seconds have passed and makes a mental note to use it wisely. For now, the skill is unavailable, and he has no idea when he can activate it again. After all that, the protagonist decides it's best to head home and get some rest. By nighttime, his entire body aches, and all he wants is a hot shower and a good night's sleep. He remembers he has to be at the dojo the next day to continue his training. The exhaustion is so overwhelming that he ends up passing out right there in his building's hallway. Sometime later, he sits up on the floor, still completely dazed by what just happened. He checks his phone and sees it's 6:33 in the morning, shocked that he slept for 6 hours. He then wonders why on earth he was sleeping on the hallway floor. It dawns on him that every second of double life usage requires 1,000 seconds to recharge. Just then, he sees a message from his senior, asking why he hasn't shown up for practice yet. Seeing the time, he panics and bolts out the door, knowing he's going to be late for the dojo. The next day, our protagonist is racing to get to the Hidden Dragon dojo on time. Once there, he slides the door open with a swift motion and steps into the training hall. Inside, he finds his senior, who greets him with a smile, calling him 7th junior brother. The girl quickly gets to her feet, saying he arrived at the perfect time for what she had in mind. With a grin, she pulls him by the hand for a demonstration match in front of the other students. The others whisper that the senior will definitely win, since the newbie has barely started martial arts. He realizes she's trying to reclaim her honor, and won't be holding back this time. But he's not bothered. This is a perfect chance to test his ability. Then, so subtly that no one notices, he activates his double life ability for the match. His senior lunges forward, throwing a swift and precise strike at Xu Jing. She follows up with a rapid sequence of moves, trying to hit him from every angle. However, with his speed doubled, he effortlessly catches her wrist. In one fluid motion, he flips her over his shoulder and slams her to the ground. The girl is left dizzy, wondering how she lost again even when using her full strength. "You let me win," he says, as his system notifies him of the experience points gained. Several more notifications pop up while the other students stare, stunned by the outcome. As he walks away, he gains even more experience, and his sports skill levels up. He wonders why he didn't get a bonus, then realizes that with the skill, he's no longer weaker than her. The young man reflects on the ability's power. Not even her years of experience were a match for it. Smiling, he decides his new focus will be on mastering the use of this speed advantage. A classmate with green hair approaches Xu Jing, inviting him to practice the hibernating dragon technique together. Our protagonist smiles and agrees, asking his fifth senior brother to guide him. But as they begin, the senior is left speechless by what he sees. He thought the rookie was just showing off, but he's already on the verge of cultivating Dragon Chu. A dragon's aura surrounds the young man, and his classmate points, calling it ridiculous for a beginner. The senior then explains that in the world of martial arts, there's a legendary physical state. This state is called the treasure body, which means training the body until it becomes a living treasure. In this state, the body can achieve 5 types of perfection, like dragon muscles and jade bones. Its muscles appear to house water dragons, and its tendons become like the roots of an iron tree. The skin turns flawless, the bones become unbreakable, and the blood boils like volcanic magma. This boiling blood happens when Ki is used, raising its temperature to that of a volcano. His classmate adds that it's all just a myth, because no one has ever actually reached that state. But Xu Jing thinks to himself that with his system, he just might become a martial arts legend. Suddenly, a powerful punch shatters the window, startling everyone in the room. With wide eyes, the young man stares at the newcomer who just made his entrance. His green-haired classmate fearfully shouts the name of the senior brother who just arrived. Shards of glass from the shattered window fly across the dojo's training hall. He introduces the newcomer as the dojo's strongest senior brother, Meng Boshang. His classmate explains that Meng is a muscle-bound fanatic who hates talking and avoids trouble. And to top it off, he prefers to enter by smashing through windows instead of using the front door. The protagonist's eyes go wide with utter shock at the senior's dramatic entrance. Peering through the broken window, he wonders how much power it would take to jump from the top floor. The green-haired student then asks the senior brother if he was looking for him. Meng Bosheng looks a bit lost but just nods, saying a simple, "I see." The senior then says he needs to leave, but first, he has one last piece of advice for Xu Jing. He explains that the essence of the hibernating dragon technique is force delivery and shaping. The young man repeats those words to himself as the powerhouse leaps out the window. With this new insight in mind, he prepares to test the theory immediately. Sitting in a meditative pose, he decides to combine the advice with his aiming ability and see what happens. 3 hours pass as he remains focused, using deep breaths to channel his energy. The aura around him intensifies as he sinks deeper into his meditation. Tiny bubbles of energy begin forming under the skin on his hand, a sign of contained power. With his aiming ability active, he fires a tiny projectile of energy from his fingertips. The small energy sphere creates a massive explosion when it hits the dojo floor. The protagonist looks at the smoke and remarks, "That's way more impressive than flicking pebbles." Suddenly, the dojo master appears and begins to applaud his new disciple's accomplishment. The master admits he didn't expect him to have such talent in sports on top of his physical gifts. With a smile, the old master offers a small golden pill and tells the young man to eat it. He then places the mysterious pill in the young man's palm, who examines it curiously. Without a second thought, Xu Jing pops the pill into his mouth, eager to find out its effects. Radiating a powerful aura, the master orders little Jing to look at him closely. All at once, the protagonist's vision blurs and the strange sensation startles him. He finds himself floating in a white void, wondering what the master did to him. At that moment, an enormous golden dragon materializes from thin air, leaving him completely stunned. The pill he swallowed starts to dissolve, releasing a potent golden energy. The young man's eyes glow intensely as the pill's power completely surrounds him. He notices golden scales covering his arm and wonders what they are. Back in reality, a terrible headache hits him as his chew surges out of control. He immediately suspects this is all because of the pill his master gave him. To get the energy under control, he starts taking deep breaths to calm the chaotic flow. He decides to use the hibernating dragon technique to pacify his rampaging Q. The young man holds his breath, focusing every ounce of his being on the technique to tame the energy. He returns to his mental space, where a wonderful sensation erases all his thoughts. Now the golden dragon is calm, circling around him peacefully and serenely. As he meditates, he realizes he just needs to focus on his practice to master this power. The dragon's energy begins to flow into his body, merging with his own QI. His eyes flash gold as his system activates a new visualization ability. Back in the dojo, he wonders how he returned, and the master explains his Q is nearly gone. The master congratulates him on cultivating Dragon Ki, and the young man asks what that is. The old man explains that so-called Dragon Chu, to put it simply, is a type of emotion. To illustrate his point, the master uses the example of how anger can make a person stronger. He says the hidden dragon style has both a moving Chu technique and a still Chu technique. The protagonist understands that if he can combine movement and stillness, he can achieve anything. With a look of determination, he asks his master how he should train this new technique. The old man replies mysteriously, saying the young man should have already grasped the essence of it. His master advises him to think for himself, and Xu Jing wonders if he already knows the secret. He recalls the state of pure focus he achieved and wonders if that's the key. The young man remembers a math problem he couldn't solve before, which now seems incredibly simple. He points to his head and tells the master he's gotten smarter, but the old man says this is only the beginning. He also notices that trivial things no longer affect his emotions, and his imagination has grown stronger. Now he can perfectly picture a giant dragon in his mind, down to the very last golden scale. He wonders aloud if this is the true essence of the visualization ability. The master says talking is pointless and calls a girl over to spar with his new disciple. The young woman jumps at the call, her face flushing red with cookie crumbs still on her cheeks. The old man explains that her control of movement is the best he's ever seen, not even her father can compare. The young man sheds his jacket, preparing to fight, and wonders who is stronger now. The girl gestures with her hand, beckoning him forward with a serious expression. The protagonist charges in at full speed, apologizing in advance to his fourth senior sister for the attack. But he's stopped mid-air by an unseen force, leaving him shocked by what just happened. The master lets out a satisfied laugh, saying his young disciple's intentions were far too obvious. Pinned to the floor, he wonders if her ability is somehow stronger than his system. The senior dusts off her hands with a superior air after taking him down so easily. With a serious look, the young man addresses her as fourth senior sister, getting ready for round 2. He charges forward again, yelling that this time, he'll do whatever it takes to win. As the fight restarts, he thinks that in martial arts, all that matters is being the last one standing. But despite his determination, he's sent flying by one of the girl's powerful kicks. He picks himself up, activates his aiming ability, and yells for them to keep fighting. The battle's intensity is so great that the entire Do building begins to tremble from the impacts. Hours pass, and the fight rages on until sunset, with the building still shaking. Back in the fray, the two trade ferocious blows, giving each other no time to breathe. During one exchange, his hand accidentally lands on a rather unexpected spot on her body. The impact sends the senior flying back as she unleashes a shockwave of pure energy. The protagonist is left confused by the lingering sensation in his hand after the accidental touch. Suddenly, the master steps in, placing a hand on the girl's back to end the fight. He announces that the combat can stop for the day, as the objective has been met. The old man explains she must be hungry, and right on cue, her stomach growls loudly. The young man asks why she doesn't speak, and the master reveals something happened during her childhood. He says it's a long story that he'll explain another time, leaving the young man intrigued. With that, the old man asks his disciple how he's feeling after the intense training session. Drenched in sweat, he says he's exhausted but happy, and his status panel shows his attributes have increased. His experience skyrocketed after sparring with his senior for 4 hours. He figures he'll need to stick close to her from now on. After a long day of training, we see the senior walking alone through the city streets at dusk. Arriving home, the protagonist calls out for his kitten, announcing he brought her fried chicken. But she's nowhere to be found, and he wonders where little Nair could have gone so late at night. Just then, he notices a bright light coming from the bathroom and hears a strange sound from inside.